All right, good evening. Lucia, how are you?
Hi, Carlos. How are you? I'm fine. And you?
Pretty well, thank God as well. It's a pleasure to see you, Lucia.
Yeah, me too. How was your weekend?
Oh yeah, pretty well. I was you know, hanging out with my friends. I'm doing homework. I think, the life of every student, right? What about you?
Yeah, good, good. It's nice to hear that you were with your friends. I just in my house. I tried to rest and with my mom, we watched some movies. I was doing the TOEFL simulation, but just
Hmm.
did reading and
Hmm.
listening.
All right. Not speaking on
So
the writing.
I
Hmm.
no, I'm gonna do it this week.
All right. Yeah,
I'm
it makes
gonna do
sense.
it
It makes
this
sense actually.
week.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's like too many hours.
Yes. Yeah,
and
three
I
hours and a half,
didn't
certainly.
and I didn't did so bad on the writing part. On the reading part, I was but for me it's bad. I get 18 from 42. It's a low. It's a low.
That was for the listening part or for the reading
No,
part,
no,
Lucia?
the reading. I
Reading.
was like,
The reading.
oh my god, yeah. On the listening,
Mhm.
I got 32 for 42. Yeah, and
All right.
better, so much
Yeah,
better. But
certainly. Very good. That is very good. Mhm.
on the reading part, it was bad. Hi, Ezequiel.
Hi, Carlos. Hi, Lucia.
Ezequiel, wonderful. Wonderful to see you,
Sorry,
Ezequiel.
thank you. I was working a lot last week, so I can't be able to connect, but I'm here. I'm back.
Don't worry. Thank you very much, Ezequiel, for your presence.
Actually, sorry because I cannot turn on my camera. I'm driving right now back home,
Wonderful. No, no, it's totally fine, Ezequiel. Take care of it.
but
All
I'm
right. Don't
here. I'm
worry.
connect.
All right. Thank you very much,
Yeah, if
Ezequiel.
you're driving, no, we don't want
Yeah,
to see put you nervous.
Yes, yes, certainly. Don't worry, Ezequiel. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here, anyways.
you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful.
So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
But Lucia, for example, with regard to what you are telling me, it's very common that people, when you take the first simulation of the reading section, it's difficult to perform very well in it. And I tell you why. It's the reason is because the exam is super tricky. It's because of that. It's not because you don't understand the reading, or it's not because you're not good at it. The only thing that you're going to discover that when we come or when we arrive to the reading section, you're going to discover that many of the questions that you got wrong, you got them wrong because they are composed or they are done so that you get the wrong responses. But I'm going to teach you how to find the correct response out of those wrong responses. Mhm.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah,
That is the reason.
I was reading my mistakes and I was, but what I put is correct too. So it's
Yes,
like
yes,
they
exactly.
try to confuse you because
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, they try to confuse you. That is exactly the expression. They try to confuse you. And of course, they want to because remind that prestige is something that you attain when you have something difficult, right? So of
Mm.
course, they want to remain their exam as something prestigious by making it hard when they can. And this is one of the sections when they can make it hard because simple questions will be too easy for people, and then everybody will be getting I don't know 115, and of course that would lower the prestige of the institution. But nonetheless, it's possible to understand the patterns, and when you understand the patterns of those responses and how they try to confuse you and to deceive you, you're going to be able to identify the correct answer always. All right. So don't worry, Lucia.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
going to get
pretty sure
into it.
that I'm gonna learn. Yeah, of course, I'm gonna see my progress in the second simulation.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Lucia. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank
Always
you.
fine to talk to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Yes. Let's start then with today's class.
Okay.
I'm very happy that we have ended with the first task of the speaking section. Okay, this is fine. Doesn't matter. Okay, so if you remember last week, we had finished our excursus on the first task of the speaking section. Remind that all of you can rewatch the classes whenever you want on our YouTube channel. All the classes are always uploaded there so you can rewatch them whenever you want. It's just a matter of going there and you're going to find the classes recorded so you want to maybe remind the detail, right? Something that you have been, well, something that you forgot to write down about or something, okay? Now that we have finished with the first task, let us just start then with the second task of the speaking section. This week is going to be dedicated specifically to the second and the third task of the speaking section, okay? So, what is this second task all about? Very simple. First of all, the first detail that I want you to notice, dear students, is the following. Remind that the other task, how was it called? It was called independent speaking task, right? In this case, the second task is not called independent anymore, but it's called integrated speaking task, okay? And why is this an integrated speaking task? Well, that is a very good question. The reason is, well, there are actually two reasons for having this name in this section. The first one is because you're going to have to combine different skills of yours in order to respond to this section. If you remind in the previous type of question, the only thing you had to do was to read on a statement, and then you had to, with your own opinion, knowledge, etc., respond to that question and deliver a response. Now, in this case, you're not just going to read a statement, but you're also going to listen to a conversation, and you're going to have to summarize both materials. And of course, by doing so, you're going to be able to exercise different skills and abilities in English. That is to say, reading, listening, and also speaking, okay? So that's the reason why this is called integrated in the first place, because you're going to have to combine different skills. Secondly, because in this case, you're not going to rely anymore on your own knowledge, on your own opinion, on your own data, let's say, or on your own information in order to respond to this question, okay? That is something very, very important. And in order for you to remember it, I have decided to post here the picture of a journalist. Look at my screen. You're gonna find that on the left side, okay? There is a journalist, okay? There's a picture of a journalist. And remind what a journalist does. What is that the work of a journalist? Well, the journalist, when he is working correctly, what he does is he goes to find out some information sources. He collects information from those he collects information from those sources, and then he tries to write down a summary, right, of those sources so that he managed to express all the information he gathered into a paper, and then that paper is his word towards his audience. That is to say, his work is simply to summarize materials that he has been investigating and taking notes on, and to compose a summary that he, of course, delivers to his audience, right? That is what a journalist does. Now, it's very important to remark at this part that what a journalist does is always remaining a stick to the topic or attached to the topic. They try to be objective, right? They always try to present the information just as they have also received it. They try to avoid changing the information. They try to avoid complementing the information in the sense that they don't offer their opinion, right? When you have a good journalist, the journalist does not, for example, apply or introduce his own prejudices within the information he's conveying. No, he tries to be very, trustworthy, tries to be super objective when delivering the summary of the information, and he always avoids including his or her opinion, right, in the information. So in this case, that is what I want you to imitate from the journalist, because in this task, you are not, okay, listen to what I say, you are not required to give your opinion about the topics you're going to be listening and reading, okay? You don't have to say if you agree, if you disagree. You don't have to complement nor add anything external or new towards the response you're going to be delivering, okay? No, your only work in this case is to collect information from different sources that ETS is going to offer you. You're going to take notes on those informations or those information sources, and then you're going to compose a summary of those informations, and that summary is going to be your response, okay? That is it, no more than that. So please remind, don't include your opinion, don't include external information to the response, nothing. just remain neutral, objective in summarizing what ETS is going to offer you. All right? Let's go. What else, dear students? What else? Now, when I say, for example, that in this task you're going to receive two types of material, is maybe you're asking why or what type of materials am I going to receive? That is also a really good question. Because when I said that you're going to receive material from ETS and you're going to depend on that material in order to deliver your response or to give your response, what I mean is that you're going to receive two things. The first one is that you're going to receive a reading passage, okay? A very short reading passage that is going to be approximately 80 to 100 words long, okay? And this is going to be the first material that you're going to receive in order for you to take notes on it and, of course, to make a summary about it later. Now, this is a reading passage that is not going to be about an academic topic. No, it is going to be a reading passage mostly about an announcement of any situation, activity, change, or movement that could be taking place in a university. That is to say, anything that could happen in a university life is something that the reading passage could be about, all right? For example, a change in the schedule of some classes, a shift in the professor's term, a new bus service, things of that sort, okay? What I mean is that this is going to be about trivial and daily things, okay? This is not going to be about something academic or scientific, no. In this case, don't worry. For this part of the task, for this part of the section, you're just going to read a reading passage that is super short, all right? This reading passage is super short, and it's going to be about, as I say, a trivial and daily topic, something going on in a university, maybe a new activity that the university is planning to offer, I don't know, a campaign in order to raise funds for charity, something like that, all right? Super simple. Now, after you read this, and by the way, in order to read this reading passage, you're going to have a limit of 4 or 5 seconds, okay? Your limit, your boundary is going to be 4 or 5 seconds. After you start reading, there's going to be a chronometer that is going to begin to scroll down, to go down, and 4 or 5 seconds, it's going to be your final objective or your final time in order for you to read. If you exceed those 4 or 5 seconds, the computer is going to take you directly to the other material you're going to be analyzing and taking notes on. And maybe you're asking, what is that material I am talking about? Well, let me show you. After you read the passage, okay, you take your notes on it, you finalize your 45 seconds, you will be listening to a conversation regarding the same announcement. That is to say, as I mentioned at the beginning, the second material you're going to be learning about, well, in this case, not learning. In the second material you're going to be receiving, being exposed to, is going to be what? It's going to be simply the conversation of two students discussing the same topic that you read about. For example, imagine that your topic was about a change in the bus service. That is to say, the university is planning to cancel the bus service for students who are now going to be required to take taxis towards campus. Now, if that is what your reading passage is about, then afterwards, you're going to listen a topic or a conversation topic of two students discussing that. That is to say, they are going to be saying, one student right in that conversation is going to say, hey, I dislike this new change in the bus service because it's not going to allow me to save money for the car I want to buy, because I'm always going to be having to spend some money on my taxi. And also it's going to refrain me from meeting new people in the bus or within the bus, you know, things of that sort. It's going to be a student. The conversation is always going to be, is going to be having two persons, okay, two students. And one of them is going to be the main speaker. That is to say, one of them is going to be the one offering the arguments, the reasons, and his opinion. The other speaker is merely a secondary speaker. What do I mean by that? There's going to be a person who is going to merely, say, let's say that the main speaker says, hey, I disagree with that because this is a bad idea. So the other person is going to say, oh, why? Why did you disagree? So it's simply going to be remarking, auxiliary commentaries, like trying to direct and receive the information that the main speaker is conveying. But as I say, the main speaker is going to be the one who is going to offer his opinion. If he agrees, if he disagrees, if he dislikes, if he likes the change, the situation. And remind this, the speakers always mention arguments for holding that opinion. maybe this is something that is familiar for you because that is exactly what we were doing last week, right? We offer our opinion about a topic and then we offer our reasons for holding that opinion. In this case, you are not going to do that, but you're going to listen to somebody doing exactly the same. He's going to offer his opinion about a topic and he's going to offer some reason and arguments in order to explain why he's holding that opinion. All right. So what you have to do? Maybe you're asking now that you know what type of material you're going to receive. Now that you understand what type of information source you're going to receive, maybe you're asking, what is going to be my work? What is going to be my job in all this? What do I have to do with these materials? Well, to state it super simply, what do you have to do? Your job here is to summarize both materials, no more than that. The only thing you have to do is to summarize both materials. As I told you, just as a journalist does when he is also working, you are collecting information, you are taking notes, and now that you have your note, now that you have listened and read that information, what do? Well, you simply summarize the information. And that summary, the summary you compose of these two information sources are or is going to be your response. Your summary is going to be your response, all right? You don't have to add anything, nor your opinion, nor any other information, nor any other data. No, the only thing you do is offer your summary of these materials, okay? Super clear, right? You don't have to do anything else. Now, of course, there's going to be some timing for this. You're going to have limited time for doing all these activities. Let me show you what is the timing. In order to read the reading passage, as I also pointed out before, it's going to be 45 seconds, okay? 45 seconds is going to be the time you're going to have in order to read the passage. And as I say, if you exceed the time, what's going to happen is that it's going to take you directly to the other part of the exam, that is to say, to the listening item, right? The audio clip or the audio item is going to last about 1 minute, by the way, if you were wondering how much would the listening item last, is about 1 minute, okay? Not very much long. Of course, we are going to see an illustration right now, so don't worry. Preparation time, 30 seconds, okay? So after you finish to listen to the audio item, and after you have read the reading passage, you're gonna receive 30 seconds just to prepare your response, okay? Remember, for the other section, we had 15 seconds, right? In this case, it is incrementing a little bit. You're gonna have 30 seconds to prepare your response. That is to say, to organize the summary you have composed of the materials, having it clear, and of course, following a structure. And that is structure that is to say the model or the template that we are going to use for responding this type of question. I am going to offer it to you later. Don't worry, as we of course did as well with what? With the first task. If you remind, we had a structure, right? We have a format that we follow. In this case, it's not going to be different. We are going to have a different follow, of course, a different template or a different format, sorry, and that is going to be the structure you're going to follow for responding. So in this 30 seconds, what you're going to do probably is going to be exactly that. You're going to prepare your response with your structure. You're going to organize your information. You're going to be ready for the 60 seconds of response, okay? If you remind, last time for the first task, we just had 45 seconds to deliver our response, right? In this case, it's augmenting a little bit, not considerably, by the way, not considerably. Just 60 seconds is going to be the time you're going to have for responding. 1 minute, okay? So now that you have 1 minute to respond, of course, maybe you're going to have time or a chance to include a little bit more of information, but remind that in this case, of course, you are also getting more things to summarize or more things to comment about, okay? So maybe the time is a little bit trickier. They're just giving you what is necessary for you to use in responding, okay? So that is the idea, dear students. Reading passage, 45 seconds, audio clip, about 1 minute, preparation time, 30 seconds, and response, 60 seconds. Let me show you now before we continue and before I give you time for making questions, how is this going to look like, okay? Of course, we're going to use here what? We're going to use a simulator, all right? So let me show you through our simulator here, how is this going to look like? And of course, this visual reference, I think is going to be super useful for you to understand, right? What this is all about. So the first thing you're going to receive when getting into the second task of the speaking session is of course, some instructions, right? As you can see here, we have some instructions. It says question type task number 2. It says you will now read a short passage and then listen to a conversation on the same topic. You will then be asked a question about them. After you read the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. As you can see, dear students, this is exactly the same that we have discussed already. That is to say, reading something, listening to something, having 30 seconds of preparation and 60 seconds to deliver a summary of that information. Now, after these instructions, the computer is going to pop up and it's going to change to this, the reading passage. The reading passage is always, let's say, prefaced or prefaced by some letters here that somehow help you to understand the context of the reading passage you're going to read right now. Let's say, in this case, it's mentioned the university has decided to change its transportation options for students. Read the university website's announcement about the decision. You will have 45 seconds to read the announcement. Begin reading now. This is a very important phrase, by the way, dear students, because remind that you are going to have your headphones on, right? And in your headphones, there's always going to be the voice of the instructor who is going to speak, right? And he's going to say, now that you comprehend what you have to do, begin reading now. Beep. And there's going to be a sound like a beep. And as I say, after you hit that beep, then you know that your time is going down. That is to say that your time has started and you have your 45 seconds to read this passage. As you can see, look at this. It's a super, super short passage. Look at it. It's no more than 100 words, as I told you. And let me tell you that the difficulty of this reading passage, it's super, super accessible. Okay, it's not difficult to manage. At least for this part of the exam, it's not that complicated. It's something that you're going to be able to understand, especially because it's daily English, right? It's something that we are used to in normal conversations with our friends, normal conversations in our life, with the public institutions, maybe we are attending in other countries, whatever. The idea is what? That you're going to read this reading passage. And as I say, dear students, you're going to have 4 or 5 seconds to do it. Now, there is something super important. Listen to what I say. Some people find 4 or 5 seconds to be too much for reading this. Maybe some of you are going to be able to read this passage in what? In a matter of 20 seconds, because it's super short. If you manage to read your passage before your 4 or 5 seconds end, what is my recommendation, dear students? Simple, listen to me. My recommendation is the following. Don't press the button next, because just in case, you're always going to have a button that says next in order to directly go and continue with the listening item. I remind that if you press it, you cannot go back later, okay? So you have to be super careful and wise if pressing this button or not. Now, I recommend you not to pull it, not to press it. Why? Because I consider that if you are going to have extra time here, that is to say, you finish this reading passage in 20 seconds and you still have 25 seconds remaining, right? Because you have 4 or 5 seconds in total in order to read this reading passage. If you finish before, my recommendation is the following. What you have to do, dear student, is simply starting to compose your summary. Remember, your response is simply going to be a summary of this reading passage and a summary of the listening item. So if you have extra time here, don't wait until the 30 seconds you have for preparing your response to start your summary. If you have extra time here, why not to take advantage of it? Why not to avail of it and start writing down your summary of this, right? Because your summary is going to be your response. So if you have extra time here and you don't use the entire 4 or 5 seconds, start writing down your summary of this part, okay? My recommendation. Now, after you read this, whether you use the 4 or 5 seconds completely or not, what is going to happen is that you're going to be listening to what? To the conversation, to the listening item, as I was mentioning, okay? Let's listen just for a second so that we can have an idea of what is this going to look like. That's all.
Now listen to 2 students discussing the announcement.
So did you hear that the university is cutting its transportation budget and ending all bus service?
I did hear that. But it's no big deal, right? I mean, the university is also compensating all students with $50 vouchers for public transportation. The vouchers can be...
We're not going to listen to it completely, dear students, because in this case, this is not going to be our practice. But nonetheless, as you can see, the reading passage for this particular exam was about a change in the university service, right? So if you listen to the conversation, of course, the very little part that you could listen to, you, I think, managed to identify that the students were discussing precisely that topic, that is to say, how they are tearing down and discontinuing that bus service at the university, okay? So as I say, the conversation is always going to be about what? is always going to be about the same topic that you read about in the reading passage. One student, that is the main speaker, is going to be offering his or her opinion about the topic. What you have to do is to summarize his opinion and to offer, or to, in this case, convey, not offer, of course, because you are not giving the arguments, right? The person who is giving the arguments is the speaker. So in your response, you are not going to give arguments. No, you are going to describe arguments. What arguments is the speaker in the conversation using for holding the opinion? That is what you have to do, to make a summary of the speaker's opinion, and to make a summary that includes the reasons that the speaker holds in order to sustain that opinion. All right? That is the idea. Now, is there any question, dear students, until this point? Anything that I could help you with or clarify? Lucia, Ezequiel, any question until this point?
No, I think that is very clear. I think that we're going step by step. So we're in the first part, and I think that for now, I'm very clear.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lucia. Ezequiel?
And for me, yeah, it's very clear.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Okay, so let's continue. So now that you have had a glance to how the exam is going to look like, let us now also, of course, show you an example of how your response should be delivered, of course, right? Because in this case, what is important is the response. In this case, I have, again, taken the attribution to prepare a response for you. That is to say, I have recorded myself responding to some examples of this second task, and I want to share them with you so that you can more or less get a glance, right, of how to respond to this section before tomorrow. Of course, we're going to practice for this section all the class, all right? But for now, let's go to this and let me show you the following. Okay, so this is an example. This is a simulation of the exam. And here we have an example of the second test, okay? As you can see, here is the preface of the reading passage, and it says, the university is planning to offer a free language course. Read a short article announcement. Give yourself 45 seconds to read the article, then listen to students discussing the same topic, right? Dear students, as you can see, these are the instructions or the context prefacing the reading passage, and now here we have the reading passage. I'm gonna paste it, okay? We're gonna read it together, nonetheless, but I'm gonna paste it in the chat box. Maybe some of you wants to, I don't know, paste it in a Word document or whatever that is more comfortable for you to read it. The point is that I wanted to show you this, all right? So let's read together and remind that the difficulty is always going to remain like this, all right? So let's see. It says the university is planning to offer free Spanish courses this semester. Due to an influx of exchange students from Spain and Latin America, starting this semester, the university will be offering free Spanish language tuition for interested parties. Participation in these courses is limited, however, and preference will be given to those students taking part in activities directly related to the exchange program. Go to the university website to find more or further details, all right? So that will be the reading passage. As you can see, super simple, right? About a change, well, about a program in this case that they are planning to offer to their students about Spanish and how this is free, etc. Now, let's listen together to the conversation in which one student explains her opinion about this possible program that the university is offering. Okay, so please try to take notes on this particular section. Okay, I know that you have not received until this point preparation for how to take notes. We're going to do it, don't worry. So please grab a piece of paper near you, grab a pencil, and try to take notes on what you're going to listen to right now. Okay, try to take notes because it's going to be super important. All right, let's listen together.
Now listen to two students discussing the Spanish classes.
What do you think about the Spanish courses the university is offering?
I'm not sure. I mean, last semester they did the same thing with an IT course, and it was booked out within 10 minutes of the registration from going online.
You think it'll be the same for this?
Well, yeah. Spanish is a popular language to learn, and look at what it says about the preferences given. There are going to be loads of students who fit the bill for preferential access.
Well, I'm going to give it a look anyway. I might get lucky.
Sure. To be honest, I think it would be better if they didn't make the course free. A lot of people will sign up just because they don't have to pay anything, then not turn up to half of the classes. If you have to pay for something, you're more likely to use it.
I'm not sure. I mean, this way it's accessible even to poorer students.
I guess so. I suppose I'm still annoyed that I couldn't do the IT course last semester. I really needed the chance to brush up on my computing skills.
All right, wonderful. So you managed to listen, right, to what this students were discussing. And as you, I think, managed to identify, they were discussing just the topic we read about. That is to say, this proposition of offering free Spanish courses to all students in a university. Now, of course, after this happens, as I told you, there is going to be a time of 30 seconds for you to organize and prepare your response. Imagine that those 30 seconds have already happened. And now please let us listen to the response that I have prepared for this particular question. Now, okay, so please try to pay attention to how I start my response, to the connectors that I use, and how I finish it, okay? Because afterwards, we're going to be looking at the structure, and I want you to be able to identify the way that I am using it, okay? So please, let's listen to my response for this particular task. Oh, there was a problem, don't worry. Download it, and we listen here. Okay, let's go. In the reading passage, we observe that the university wants to offer free Spanish courses since next trimester to all students, but especially to those who are engaged with exchange programs. On the other hand, we also observe a student who disagrees with this modality because she considers that just as it happened with the IT classes, so many people, just because the courses are free, are going to register, and many students are going to stay out of the lessons. She also considers that given that Spanish is a very popular language, many students will also be super interested in learning this language, and many people will simply stay out of the lessons. She also considers that the university should make these courses not free but pay, and that way just the students who are really interested in these courses will take part of them, and not just the students who, because the courses are free, get into. Wonderful. Okay, so I think that is a very good illustration of how to respond to this particular task. And as you managed to listen, I didn't include in this particular response anything of my own consideration. That is to say, I didn't include my opinion. I didn't include any external information. I didn't include any external data, anything. So that is what you have to imitate, okay? Don't include anything that you can bring externally to the response, all right? It's everything always staying very much stick and attached to the topic, remaining objective, merely summarizing what the different information sources told us, okay? No more than that. All right, now let's listen to another example so you can have the idea very clear. And then we're going to look at the structure for you to respond this particular section, okay? So let's read this order reading passage. I'm going to paste it as well in the chat box for you to read it if you want. This is a different topic, by the way. And of course, we're going to have a different response for this one. Let's see. The campus fitness center will permanently close at the end of this semester. This decision was made by the university administration in coordination with representatives of the Students Association. Unfortunately, the building currently housed in the center is very old, it says, and the university can no longer afford the cost of maintaining it or providing heat and air conditioning as required. Furthermore, the popularity of the center has declined since the university formed partnerships with several private fitness centers in the city. These partnerships mean that all full and part-time students can access 5 privately owned gyms across the city at no cost. All right, so that will be the reading passage. As you can see, I think the level of hardness of this particular passage does not vary, right? It's super similar, and it is actually following the same genre as I mentioned. The genre of all this reading passage is always university situations, right? It's super simple to understand. All right, now let's listen to the conversation on the same topic before we listen to my response, okay? Let's go. Take notes, by the way. Take your piece of paper, take notes.
What do you think about this announcement?
To be honest, I'm completely opposed to the plan.
Really? Why?
Because shutting down the fitness center isn't really going to save much money. I mean, sure, the building is really old, but even if it isn't used on a regular basis, the school still has to maintain it. They have to make sure it is safe and that it doesn't become a fire hazard or something like that.
I didn't think about that.
Right, and even tearing the building down will be expensive because of all the construction workers they'll have to hire. Plus, once it's gone, we're going to need to replace it with something new, so we shouldn't shut down the gym just to save money.
You make a good point.
And it's not like all the students can easily use the gyms in the city. The closest one is a 30-minute drive from school. How are people who live in dorms on campus supposed to reach them if they don't have their own car?
You know, I took a taxi to one of the gyms and it cost nearly $20. I can't afford to pay them much money every time I want to exercise.
Exactly. And even if you can afford to pay for a taxi, it will be really challenging to get one if you want to exercise late at night. I don't think that was really considered when the decision to close the fitness center was made.
And there you are, dear students, there you are. Okay, so what is the point here now? If you manage to listen to my responses, dear students, there are some phrases that I always mention, right? For example, at the beginning of my responses, I always repeat a phrase. I use some connectors. I use, for example, a particular structure, right? And now maybe you're asking yourself, what is that particular structure the professor is following? Well, let me share it with you so that you can also apply it to your responses, okay? Just as we did as well with the first task of the speaking section. This is the following, or excuse me, this is the structure I am following, right? The structure you should follow. It's super simple. It's a very intuitive, actually, a structure, but the phrases or the wording that I have included here, it's also as well very much adequate if you want to follow it. Remind that it is not necessary to always follow these lines perfectly. You can modify the wording, change it a little bit if you want, but I think that as it is right now, it's very solid, okay? Now, the first thing you have to say is to begin with in the reading passage, and after that comes whatever the passage said. That is to say, remind that you had until this point created a summary, right? You had created a summary of the reading passage. You have composed a summary. You have written down on your sheet of paper what the summary for this reading section is going to be. And after you say to begin with in the reading passage, the only thing you have to do is to state that summary. That is to say, you have to mention what is your summary of that particular reading passage, okay? But remind, it must be super concise, super brief, okay? Never expand so much, never be too, too jealous of the information. That is to say, never be that much scrupulous. Scrupulous means detallista, okay? Never be that much scrupulous. Try to always be cursory, concise, okay? Super general. But as you can see, after you say to begin with in the reading passage, what you have to say is your summary of the reading passage super concisely. After you finish your summary of the reading passage, you mention a connector. What is that connector? On the other hand, and where are we mentioning this connector? The reason is because we are going to contrast the reading passage with the listening item. We're going to contrast both materials. Although they are not contradicting themselves many times, we are going to contrast them because here is what the reading passage said. That is to say, your first, the first part of your response is what the reading passage said. And on the other hand, separately, there's another thing. On the other hand, and here comes your summary of the listening item. Okay, so after you say on the other hand, you simply state and speak out your summary of the listening item. And now there are other two boxes and options here that I don't want you to be confused about. It says first speaker's reason, second speaker's reason. Why am I mentioning this? Because I want to make sure that you understand that it's super, super important that in your summary of the listening item, you need to include what are those reasons or arguments that the speaker is holding for defending his opinion. Because remember that the speaker, the main speaker of the conversation, always says his opinion, but later explains why, right? He offers some reasons, arguments for holding that opinion. He doesn't just express the opinion, but he also defends it, just as we did, for example, in the first task, right? So what is your objective here? That in the summary you make of the listening item of the conversation, remind that you need to include what are those reasons the speaker gives in order to sustain his opinion. First speaker's reason, second speaker's reason. I decided to put this number because normally your speaker just have two reasons, but nonetheless, if he has more reasons, third reason, fourth reason, maybe fifth reason, mention them all, okay? This is just for sure and structure for you to follow, but the idea is that you have to follow this structure. You say to begin with in the reading passage, and then you go for what? You go for the summary of the reading passage. Super concise, super cursory. Then you move on and say, on the other hand, and then you offer your summary of the listening item. And making sure that you include the first speaker's reason, the second speaker's reason, and any other reason he may give. Super intuitive, super simple, right? That is what you have to do. Now, I want to listen to you, dear students. Any question about this structure, anything that I can help you and clarify? Lucia, Skill, anything about this structure?
No, I think that meanwhile we are practicing, maybe I came up with a question, but right now it's just very clear because I heard you, and it's like you talk like in third person. I don't know if that's safe like that. So yeah, I take my notes, and it's very clear because it's
Wonderful.
because it's not your opinion. The structure is very clear because you have to say the subject, you have to use a connector, and explain the speaker's reasons. So it's very clear. I think we're gonna do it very good. I hope.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You will. Thank you very much, Lucia. Yeah, you are completely right. That is all you have to do. No more than that. Okay. Ezekiel, any other question? Anything?
No.
All right. Wonderful. There we are. Okay. So as you can see, dear students, this is the structure. Okay. So now, before we finish, let's get into some recommendations I have for you for this particular task. Okay. What are my recommendations? Listen to this. For this section, dear students, you must be very general, okay, and concise while summarizing both materials you will receive. Nonetheless, if you're going to emphasize in one item, let it be in the listening item. Namely, spend more time summarizing the conversation you just listened to. Maybe some of you were asking yourselves, right? I'm going to have two different sources of information to summarize. In which one should I spend more time? Which one should I emphasize? And the response is simple. Summarize, paying more attention and spending more time about the listening item. Why? Because maybe you have thought about this previously, but what you can do, for example, with regard to the reading passage, as you're able to see it, right, and you have a sheet of paper near you, what you could do in order to, let's say, hack the exam, I say hack because, of course, this wouldn't work, right? It's not a hack, would be to copy exactly what the reading passage said and to deliver it just as it was presented to you. And of course, that would be easy to do, but nonetheless, first of all, it's not a summary. And secondly, of course, if you do that, the reviewer is going to say, well, I mean, is this person not able to offer a simple summary of what he has read? So the first reason for going for the listening part is that you are demonstrating that you are not going for the obvious things, right? And secondly, if you pay more attention and emphasize and spend more time discussing what the listening item said, what does that show? It shows that you are somebody who is very proficient at synthesizing information. Remember that synthesizing information means taking something from this part, from this other part, and uniting it to a whole. So if you, of course, you are able just to listen to the conversation once, right? You don't have the option to reproduce it again. So if you're able to take good notes on what the listening item said, if you're able to pay attention, if you're able to combine that information with what you wrote down of the reading session, the reviewer is going to be very much surprised and is going to give you a high score, okay? So of course you're looking for a high score. That is what we are all looking for. And what we can do in order to do that is to emphasize more on the listening item. That is to say, talked about more that, spend more time there. Feel free to comment a little bit more of details about the listening part and not the reading part, okay? So that will be my first recommendation. Second, it is not necessary, dear students, to specifically state what person in the conversation said any specific thing. Let me explain. Avoid expressions like, for example, the woman said this and then the man responded this, or he added this and she later said this. Remember that in this conversation, there are going to be two persons, right? There are students. And of course, they are going to be talking to each other. Now, maybe you are somehow tempted to state in your response something like, the main speaker disagrees with the change in the bus service because he considers this. And the other speaker replies to him that he wants to know why is the student thinking that way. So this main speaker responds again that he thinks that because of 3 reasons. And later, the other secondary speakers replies, okay, I want to listen to them. So as you can see, that dialogue, that interchange of dialogue, he said this, the other said this, he replied this, the other one responded this, he argued this, he objected this. It's not something that you have to mention to your students, all right? Focus only on what the main speaker mentions and use the expressions given by the other speaker, the secondary one, just as supplementary details to your response. If you listen to what I said, I never mentioned, right? The main speaker said this, and later the secondary speaker replied this, and the other rejected this. And no, because that is losing time, okay? That is wasting your time. Why? Because that is simply irrelevant. It doesn't matter who said it. The point is that if you are going to summarize the information of the main speaker, you just need to focus on what he said. That is to say, what arguments he had, what opinion he had, and you can use the information provided by the other speaker just as supplementary information, but not mentioning him directly, okay? It's not necessary. You don't have to do it because you're going to waste time there, and it's not adding anything positive to your response, all right? So please avoid this interchange of dialogues. Third, it's going to be super advantageous to your students if you prepare your response sheet in an interlude between the first task and the second one with the outlines you'll follow. Remember that from the second to the second task, there's always going to be 10 seconds of separation, 10 seconds of interlude, right? First task ends, then comes the second task, but before you're gonna have like 10 seconds of, I don't know, the system, maybe it's charging, whatever. What do I recommend you to do? Prepare your sheet of responses to your students. What do I mean by that? What you have to do is simple. It's simply this. You simply have to remind that you're going to have the opportunity to have sheets of papers, right? So my recommendation is take your sheet of paper, okay, and begin to write down what the structure that I recommend you to here. Remind this is structure. Try to copy it towards or on your sheet of paper, because by doing so, you're going to have what your structure ready, first of all. And once you start receiving the material, the only thing you're going to do is fill in the blank spaces, right? For example, you say, right, to begin with, in the reading passage, you put their column, and you leave some blank space for you to fill it when you receive the information about the reading passage, okay, when you listen to it. So you're gonna leave the blank space, and after you can see, you say, on the other hand, and you're leaving, of course, some blank space for you to include the speaker's opinion and reasons. So this is a very healthy exercise to practice in this interlude of the first task and the second task, because you have to take time, you have to take advantage of every single second you have. So if you want to have your response organized, your structure prepared, and to be more comfortable while filling out what you're going to write down, filling out these blank spaces with your summaries, the ones that you're going to mention in the task, wonderful, take advantage of those seconds, okay? Final recommendation. While responding to your students, it may be useful to set your eyes on your papers where you have outlined all the points you are going to mention from the materials, okay? This way you're not going to get distracted. Remember that if you're going to take the IBT version of your students, what is going to happen? You're going to take the exam with other people. Besides you, there's going to be somebody, I don't know, making some noise. The other person is going to be, I don't know, just sitting in front of you. The staff members are going to be going through the computation room. The point is there's going to be a lot of movement, and a lot of things could distract you. What is my recommendation? When responding, take your sheet of paper, right, where you have written your response, and set it before your eyes. That is to say, look at it directly. Look at the response at the sheet of response sheet directly. Because by doing so, if you look at the response sheet directly, you're going to be able to be concentrated just in what you have to say, and you're going to avoid, you know, looking at other people, what they are doing in this particular part of the exam. Okay. So my recommendation: have your sheet of paper set directly, or set your eyes directly to your sheet of paper, and you're not going to get distracted. All right. Any final question, dear students? Anything that I can clarify here?
Yes,
Lucia?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Number 2 recommendation.
Mhm.
Maybe you, in the answer, we should use our own words, like to say, not using the first people said that, and the woman responses, not like repeat the audio that we're gonna listen. Like, I think that the first speaker is mad because, I don't know, the university is taking off the transportation bonus or something like that. So he says to the other person that he's mad, and the other tries to comprehend, something like that. Or we can be in that direction, or we have to be more objective. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Lucia. It's a very good question, actually. And what I would say is that you should avoid that interchange or that dialogue interchange at all costs. Okay, don't mention that interchange in any form that you may imagine. Okay, because it's just going to be, it's going to provoke your response to be wasted. Because I mean, if you say, right, he said this, and this and this and this, and the other one responded this. I mean, what is that adding to the response? It's not adding anything, because the question is simply asking you to summarize things. And when you're summarizing, you just include the important parts, right? And what are the important parts in this material? Well, the opinion of the main speaker, the reason he holds for holding that opinion, the reason he postulates for holding the opinion. So those are the aspects that I recommend you to include. And it's not necessary, as I say, to mention the secondary speaker whatsoever. You just can dispense with it. You can forget about it. Just go saying, right, as I did, we have a student that disagrees with this option because he considers that the bus service is something that is going to cost a lot of money to the different students in the university. Moreover, the students also considers that this is going to allow students, or is going to prevent students from getting into their classes on time, whatever. But the point is that you just mention what the main speaker says, and you stay focused on what arguments is he delivering for holding that opinion, and you include all that information within your response. This interchange of he said this to his friend, and his friend responded this, not actually adding anything, right? Positive, nor any information. So I wouldn't recommend you to use it.
Okay,
right?
perfect. Yeah. Perfect. I think that
Wonderful.
I'm gonna put, well, tomorrow when we practice, I'm gonna I'm gonna do it.
Yes.
And then I'm gonna learn
Wonderful.
on the
Yes.
better way.
Yes.
Thank you. That was my doubt, so everything clear now.
All right. Thank you very much, Lucia. Yeah, very good question. Thank you for asking. It's a very good question. Ezequiel, any questions? Anything?
No, just for tomorrow I need like like Lucia said, like practice more. Yeah, that would be much better to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry, because that is exactly what we're going to do tomorrow. All the class is going to be for practice, okay? So please make sure to have your piece of paper to be able to talk comfortably, to be able to have your microphone on, to have a place where you can write down your responses, and we're going to be practicing, okay? So if you
Yeah,
don't
and
have
that
any
would be
questions,
much better. Like practice your recommendations.
yes,
Yeah, that would be
yeah,
great for
certainly.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes, Ezequiel, exactly. Don't worry, that is exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to practice a lot because there's a lot of material that I have for you. So you're going to be super, super busy tomorrow, okay? And of course, we're going to listen to each other, and we're going to try to offer some feedback, of course, right? As you said, for you to apply the recommendations and for you to improve, right? So I'm going to be helping you with any grammar thing or anything that I consider you could improve. I'm going to tell you, okay? Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ezequiel. All right. So please don't go. I have to take your assistance. Don't forget. And yes, as I said, tomorrow it's going to be just for practicing. Okay. Before you go, please as well help me with the traditional poll that we always feel. You know that feeling positively, you help me a lot. So please, I'm launching the poll right now. Look at your screen. Help me with that. And also, I'm going to take your assistance. Okay. So please listen to your name. Here we are. All right. Is here Raisa Olivia? Okay, she's not here. She said that she wouldn't be able to enter. Lucia Gabriela Aguirre.
Here, present.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Wonderful. Camila Alvarez, she never got into. Weird. Sergio Andres Heredia. Okay, and she's not here. And finally, Rafael Cordero Ezequiel.
I'm here.
Thank you very much, Rafael. Okay, there you are. So thank you very much, dear students, for being with me tonight. It's been a pleasure. And as I say, tomorrow we are going to be seeing each other to practice and practice and practice. Okay, have a wonderful night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ezequiel. Thank you,
Bye,
Lucia.
Carlos. Bye, Ezequiel. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you.